it's just a cultural thing. When I go to all of the places that I go, I always get a gift, and I always try to bring a gift.
Yeah. Some candies are also fun. Sure. So you don't mind if I put the record on?
No, that's good. This is my business.
Oh.
In fact, when my student was doing her interviews, I brought her a little recorder. And I had a laugh because I said, nobody needs a recorder anymore. You have them in your phone.
Oh yeah. But I mean, the quality of the phone is actually not as good as the recorder. Yeah, that's why I didn't bring a recorder because I didn't expect that I'll have opportunity to interview people. I think I will just be working on projects, but then I think that's maybe a better choice. So maybe first, like you can talk about, because you work a lot in China, right? So is there any differences or similarities you notice between the service learning in the States and also in China?
Well, one of the big key differences is in the work in the United States, we talk about being a citizen in a democracy, whereas China today is struggling a little bit, wouldn't consider itself to be. They do vote, but the democracy is not as functional. But I go back, as I say, to Confucius, and the role of developing is to learn to be a responsible citizen. So the people who are doing service learning in China that I work with believe in that part of development. Even in the literature in the China Youth League was that this was about helping young people to become adults. But I think that in China, and as you mentioned, No Child Left Behind, the teachers struggle with the curriculum that's already been developed. So again, very much in China and very much in Singapore, the state education organization says this is what you will teach.
Yes.
There's more interest, like with the work we were doing in Beijing and in Singapore, with values and talking about moral development. And those are the kinds of things that people do.
Go ahead.
And like that's what's so hard is like, and I knew that like I cannot voluntarily set myself up for another interview just because like it's
Yeah, I've been better.
it's like
We were going to have a memorial for Susan in Iowa, and we've been trying to plan it probably for many months, and then we picked a date of May 9th. Susan's brother sent me a picture of the Mississippi River that's flooded, and said that Perry would plant the tree and
She was like,
so we can't do it, and so just a bunch of other things that just that made me smart for me. Yeah, and then floods and trying to coordinate stuff with daughters. I got some trips with my Tuesday would be better.
we met me at the rec last week. I think she's cute. She's so cute. But yeah. And then I know.
Okay. to
That was the other girl.
2:30.
Haley Kraft. Oh yeah, she seems like a sweetheart. Yeah, she's super fun. She goes in like yes. Yeah.
Sure.
I taught the kisses her.
I am old, but I can still remember. Okay.
Hi.
So that's the 11th, right?
It was kind of what happened or no?
I mean, that's 14th, right? I'm saying. Yeah. Next time. 7, 14. Okay. Great. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Rob, do you mind if we change places? Because now with the traffic, I'm worried about the quality. Yes. Otherwise, I couldn't remember all your wisdom, and I wasted your time if I didn't write articles. So we might change places. Thank you. I think here is also better. This seems better.
It's better?
Yes, I think so. Because
It's just music. Go sit in my car.
huh?
I said, we can go sit in my car. Right there. Do you want to do that?
I'm not quite sure. Well, we could.
Because you wouldn't have the mutants because you got the music. Let's go sit in my car.
All right. Or maybe if you don't mind, we'll go a bit further. Like the Memorial Hall, but the Memorial Hall is a bit further, right?
Yeah.
Where the NLC. So we just.
You've been around the campus.
A little bit, but just around the Memorial Hall. Are we allowed to sit on that bench? Or there?
Oh,
Are we allowed?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Church.
Oh, it's a church. Is it a church?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. This way would be quiet.
Okay.
They're over on the sidewalk.
Oh.
Not very good.
Should I put this? How can I move this
Oh,
a bit?
want to move it back?
Yes.
There should be things on the sides here. Let's see.
I'll put it.
Oh, right.
Oh, this is forward and then it's back.
There we go.
Ah, okay. All right. I think that's enough. Otherwise, I'll go sleep.
Sleep.
I'm kidding. Yes, this is way better. Yes, in terms. Yes. You don't mind if I just open the door, right? Okay. I'll just put the recorder here. Yeah, and then because I noticed that in the book you mentioned, like all the service learning should, work together with the legislators and then try to influence the policy. So when I read this slide, I was just wondering, how could it be possible in the context of China? Because
I think it's happening. There are, in fact, talking to Wu Jing,
yeah,
she's worked, and Kathy Kay has done more work with some of the educational systems, where there's a national initiative in China around youth leadership, where they added the term service learning. But it seems to be happening more when universities are kind of pushing the support, and I would argue in a sense that when I say in my chapter that one of the best programs that we had in the United States was called Community Higher Ed School Partnership.
Yes.
That was a federal program.
Oh, so it's a federal. Okay.
I did an evaluation in Mississippi and another state of that program. And that was basically saying that schools and universities and community all needed to work together. And just as you have volunteer programs in the universities where college students can go into the elementary and middle schools to help. So you could help them with, again, your passion. So if we went back to that thing about shoes, we could have the kids start doing study of the shoes that the kids wear in their school and those kinds of things. And teachers need some help, because if you're starting to individualize instruction, you need other people to help you with it. China should be.
Oh, yes. Wow. Just talking about China, yeah. I just fear, like, I know, like, people in China, they, some of them talk about service learning, but the root of service learning is linked to policy change, political change. But not many people realize that.
No, and as I say, so you need to interview Jim, because Jim Kilsmeyer has been one of the leading people in working on legislation. So in Minnesota, he was able to get legislation in the 1980s to have a tax that supported it. He helped to develop that federal legislation for the National Community Service Act. He and this other guy, Joe Nathan, Joe's been involved in Minnesota for a long time. And he's much more involved in policy. And so I can give you Joe's name. You might want to interview him.
He is also in the books, right? I read it somewhere, is it?
I don't remember if I mentioned Joe's name.
Okay, but definitely Jim is there.
Yeah, Jim is here.
Okay.
But Tom Schnabel, Tom is at Stanford.
Yeah, right.
But he actually started, when I first met him, was in Mississippi, and I was evaluating their community school partnership. And so he was at the University of Southern Mississippi.
Yeah, because when I was reading this part, I was very impressed, because I also have a question about how the teacher grow out of the service learning program. This he and I think Marsha are two of the examples. Their career developed because of service learning program.
Right, and they implemented it. It was a federal initiative.
Yeah.
And Marcia was the one who was the state coordinator for the federal program.
Right.
And so they developed it in Mississippi. It was going on in many other states. Minnesota had one too. California, we had it. But if you're interested in policy, the way to make policy change, and that's been part of the big challenge, is a lot of the legislators are looking for numbers. They want to know, do kids' reading scores go up? And if you're looking, you need both the numbers, but you need the stories.
Yes.
And so Jim can give you an example of how stories changed service learning in Minnesota as a state. Because that's what the governor actually went and listened to some kids and was impressed with what they had to say and supported legislation to make it happen.
So both the numbers and the qualitative
it is,
materials.
but the other piece, when I was working in that project in the 1970s, I had connections with my state legislator and with my local legislators, and so my kids would work with them on projects. So my one of my proudest moments ever was being in Sacramento, which is the capital of California, and I had my students. We were there for 2 days to visit with legislators. And we were talking with our legislator, and the superintendent of my school district called him, and the legislator said, the guy's name was Clyde, the superintendent. He said, "I'm sorry, I can't talk to you, Clyde. I'm talking to Rob and his students." So we took more precedent than the superintendent. So the biggest takeaway from this book for all of these things is that relationships matter. So when I talk about myself being a bridger,
yes,
that I'm trying to connect higher ed and K-12 community. I've been at the YMCA. I've been president of the Minnesota Evaluation Association. So the service learning people don't talk to the evaluation people, and they're all doing the same kinds of things. And so I've been very lucky to.
Yes, it comes to my question as a bridger.
A bridger. Okay.
Yes. So as a bridger, because I always regard myself as like, do we have a time limit?
Oh, it's 150. I can put in more if we go beyond that.
Okay. So I'm also like a bridger kind of person. So
because you're in this program, you came from China to find out about you. Okay.
Yes. So, but you are crossing different fields, with different like actors in. So, what is your secret of bringing them on board? And
the term that is used in the Evaluation Association, David Fetterman and Abe Wandersman have what they call empowerment evaluation, which I claim is service learning. Empowerment evaluation, and Fetterman's at Stanford, is going into a community and meeting with community people, saying, what are your issues, what do you need to do? You develop a program, and then you help those people to evaluate it. So you could say, so maybe if kids said mental health was an issue in our school, so we would say, well, what do we need to do? We should have more counselors. We should have programs that allow kids to interact with other adults. And so as the bridger in empowerment, you're trying to find people in the community who are interested and are doing this stuff already. So when I go to China, I want to find universities and people that are already interested in doing this to work with them, but they're going to be doing it. I'm not going to be there. They're there. The same in Singapore. And so I work with the Singapore YMCA. I work with the Hong Kong YMCA. In Beijing, there's a YMCA. So if you can get those organizations to come on board and help, then you have more people involved.
Why you think that is you? I believe like a lot of people know there is like a gap, or and why you are so advanced.
Well, again, it's partly the happenstance. I'm kind of a crazy person. I try to do 1,000 things, so I'm not good at anything. I'm just a little bit.
Yes, I'm also kind of, so I push myself to dig deep in one direction, because that was what I was told.
Yeah, and that's where everybody lives. They live, the bonders in the social network or social capital theory are the ones who are in the group. They're the friends. So you come in as the outsider, you're not going to spend enough time to be the friend, but you have to connect with one or two of those people who will take the leadership, because hopefully they know more than you do. There was a book written in the 1970s called The Facilitative Role of the Teacher, and they were the ones who were helping us develop this experience-based career education program. And there's a lot written now about the facilitative role.
Yeah.
So as a teacher, if I'm going to be working with you on storytelling, and then I might want to have somebody who's an expert in communication. So a faculty member in communication. And they could talk about, well, here are the theories that you should be working with. So I don't know that. I just know in the large picture how you can make some connections. The communication is important.
Do you think that it brings some challenge, along your career, that you know only a little bit of every piece, but
The challenge is getting people to come together, and the research on service learning is very clear. It takes time. It takes time to develop the relationships. So if you wanted to go back to China and do something, you might pick a community in Beijing with this, maybe 5 schools or something, and a university, and say, how do we develop it? Now the good news would be to say, oh, Beijing Normal's been doing this for a while. China Youth University has been doing this. So they have some students, they have some faculty, so they could help us. And so it would be Chinese people talking to Chinese people, not some American who's coming in. And so the theories about bridging and bonding is that the bridger helps to make the connection, but they don't do the work. Your goal is to make connections. So when I do my things, I had a project called Senior. I'm very corny, so it's bad. We had senior citizens working with seniors in college and seniors in high school to start civic engagement programs in the high schools. But it was trying to say, but there are organizations that have senior citizens. One, for example, is called the Vital Aging Network in Minnesota. Actually led by a woman I'd worked with 30 years ago. So if you could connect with those people, and I connected with some of the seniors in the Democratic Party, there's a senior caucus, they got involved. The seniors in college were through service learning and campus compact. So I knew those kinds of people. And in the high schools, the social studies teachers and social studies programs. So if you can get them to work together to do some kind of a project, that's the other challenge, is that sometimes we try to do too much, and we need to start small and get focused and do something well, and then you can build from there. Because the second stage of that building is having your students doing the teaching. So the Youth Development Leadership Program here in School of Social Work, there were 4 or 5 of us that started it, and we wanted to have our students continue it. So now we're all old. Most everybody is retired or dead. But the director was a former student. All of the classes are being taught by former students who went on to get their PhDs. So they lived the experience as a student, and now they are running the program. And so in a sense, the notion of empowerment, I think, is a very strong concept. And it involves community, and in many ways, Bob Sigmund, who's in the book, believes that the whole goal of doing this work is to empower the community. That it's not about helping the college students or the high school kids. The first area of priority should be the community. And so that's another whole area of how do you get community members and to buy into this.
And do you find sometimes, like, the requests or the needs from the community members are not really the needs, like, how can I describe it? Because they tell you the needs that they want, but it's not based on their right. They want too much.
Okay, they want that, or they sometimes what you think the community needs. The best example I've used is working with homeless people. And so when we have programs to go in to areas where there are homeless people, people say, well, the homeless people need food, they need shelter. When you talk to homeless people, for the most part, they say, we figured out how to survive. We know where to sleep on the street and we can get some food. We want people to acknowledge us as people. Look me in the eye and say hello to me instead of walking away when I'm walking down the street. So the needs that the community expresses may not be what you would normally think would be their need. Secondly, one of the questions I always ask is, who's the community? You go into an area, there are youth communities, there are old people communities, there are political communities. And so you have to, in a sense, kind of define the community that you want to work with. And then you can engage them. So it goes back to saying, who are the members of this particular community?
True.
So it could be religious, and some of the communities work with the churches are very, very powerful and bring people together and have a lot of respect. So having somebody from the church leading the effort makes a lot more sense than, again, an outsider. So that's
that work with the people in the community.
But that, again, to prepare teachers to do this kind of stuff, they have to do it. And so it would be nice if I couldn't get the University of Minnesota to do it. But I said, let's find students who have been doing service learning for several years and try to recruit them into teacher education. Because the research on teacher education that I cite in some of the study, in the report that I did on teacher education, is teachers teach as they were taught. So if I've been lectured to all this time, I think lecturing is most important. If I've always had to write a paper and take a test, then I think that that's the true measure of education. So to
experiential learning. In the bad way. I mean.
Yeah, it's exactly that. It's experiential learning. And so if you want to change teacher behavior, you need to give them the experiences of doing the service learning program. And then also providing the assistance. As I said, so if you're a student and you love horses and you want to learn how to be a jockey, I had a student who wanted to learn how to be a jockey. You had to find people in the community who were the experts in horses and jockeys. And then you make that connection. Just like I said, if you want to learn about policy, talk to Jim Kilsmeyer and Joe Nathan, because they've been much more involved than I have. In fact, if I had my life to do over again, I might think I should be more involved in some policy things. But I went much more in terms of community and preparing programs and things. But again, I got sidetracked into evaluation. And now I think evaluation is one of the more critical elements. Because if you're trying to do service learning and make change, you have to have some system to measure the change and say, yeah, we made an impact or we didn't make an impact. And sometimes the change in the community doesn't happen, but I might change your attitude. Or the community members might start to be aware of something that they weren't aware of before. You wouldn't have changed the real activities in the community per se, but maybe that's another year or two down the road. And so part of the value of doing evaluation is always asking that question. What are our goals? What are we trying to do? And are we making any progress? And so that's part of the reflection in terms of I did a paper in 1989 on reflection and said it wasn't that you did reflections, it's what you reflected upon. Most programs reflect on, you go out, you do your volunteer experience, did you like it? What did you learn? But they never really get into, what did you learn about sociology? What did you learn about theories of adult development or those kinds of things? And so it's important to reflect, but more important on what you reflect upon. And that's where most of the service learning programs just reflect on the service and the feelings of the individual, not on the real academic learning that's taking place as a part of that.
Interesting. Would you send me some like research paper about evaluation
Okay.
Like, yeah.
Okay.
So I'll note that down because I want to know more about
Okay.
that. Um,
Questions?
do you have more time?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay,
Yeah.
just maybe like a 10 more.
10, 15 minutes.
So, like we talk about. One question about this one. Why? I don't understand. You thought service learning was a new idea. You didn't understand what happened in one-room schoolhouse throughout the. So what happened in the 19th century?
Well, what Henry Levin said was, in one-room schoolhouses, the third graders tutored the first graders. So he was saying just because you were all stuck in one room, kids helped one another.
Oh, okay.
So in a sense,
that was,
that was his sense that they were doing service learning. They were.
Yeah, that's exactly what you did with the high school. You know the.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Of course. Yeah, I understand that.
And so.
Oh yeah, and then we talk about a little bit about the challenges young people meet today. Yeah, they don't know. But what do you think is the most challenging parts growing up? Like in nowadays notice the young people, and then back in your time, is there any when you grew up, what is the biggest challenge? And now with the current kids.
I mean, it's when I grew up, was the impact of technology didn't exist. Now, technology. When I went to see my grandchildren, they didn't even talk to me. They were just busy with their video games, and so I'm concerned that the use of social media and electronic communication is hurting face-to-face communication. I think the other challenge now is much more national and international. So I'm afraid that our crazy, I shouldn't say on tape, the president
That's fine.
is making all these threats to China, and that the tensions. So some of my friends say, is it safe for me to go to China? Will I get locked up and put in prison?
No.
Well, but that's the perception. And there have been a few people who have been locked up in China and in other places.
True.
And so I'm hoping that young people can work together and build relationships so that this afternoon, as I say, I'm 4 o'clock, I have to talk to somebody in New Zealand. So I'm hoping that kids can do exactly, you're the perfect example. That you're here from China to try to understand what's going on here, what's going on in China, and how can you develop relationships with people so that we can always talk. Now that we've met and we've talked, that you can shoot me an email and say, Rob, I need something here. So we have a relationship. So it's building, I think, international relationships where young people can communicate with one another, like the young lady in Sweden who did that initiative and got kids to walk out of schools all over the world. And so I think that young people are much more interested in connecting with other young people. To say, what's it like growing up in China? What's it like growing up here? How's that different? How's it the same? But more importantly, how do we begin to have communication between the young people with one another? So that technically these little things will translate for you, right?
Yeah.
So you just I listen and then translate. So with my Chinese daughter, and when I'm writing on Facebook and I see all of her friends have written, there's a little thing I just put translation and it translates somebody's comment. So the good news is there's a lot that's helping us. I think the bad news is there's a lot that's undermining face-to-face communication and relationship development. So
yes, okay.
So that would be my.
And what do you think is, the most important thing to learn as a youth or as they grew up? Like,
I think there's a book Thomas Friedman wrote. It's called The World is Flat.
Flat.
You've read that?
Yeah.
Okay. He has a formula. He says CQ plus PQ
PQ
equals or is greater than IQ. Okay.
Yeah.
Curiosity quotient plus the passion quotient.
Oh.
So what you hope that young people will learn is to be curious, to ask questions, and to be passionate. Say, I want to learn this. And then they become lifelong learners. And what schools tend to do is kill the curiosity and the passion. You just say, you have to study this. Oh, I don't like it. You have to do it. Take the test. You're done. And so we kind of kill that desire, because young children are eager to learn. They learn language, and all of these things on their own. And so programs like this, hopefully you're coming here and you're connecting with some people and maybe getting them to come to China and develop a program where your students and their students connect to each other. Then you lay the foundation so that in 3 years those students will be able to continue because they understand who you are and the people here, and you all believe in experiential learning and relationships.
And most of the kids that who benefit from who can benefit from this program is the rich kid.
Like that's the same here too.
Yeah.
You're not a rich kid?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, because I couldn't afford those expenses. I have to, otherwise I won't apply for this program because I know it's all fully sponsored by.
And I mean, the change in China is, I was just reading a report that said 1980 the average income in China was something like $500, and now it's 10,000. So there's a middle class that didn't exist before.
Yeah.
And so that's both a positive thing, but also a problem. Certainly Chairman Mao didn't want the middle class to push against the poor people.
Yeah.
So we're the migrants. I mean, the work that I do is mostly with the migrants in Beijing.
Oh, with Beijing normal, or with the China Youth
University, they've identified a community. I can send you the email right around the campus. Because we work with some that were maybe 30 or 40 miles from campus.
Oh, so the university students, the service learning project of the university student is about the migrated workers.
Well, that's where we've those have been one of the issues that have come up. So my challenge to them is to say, find me a community. I want my students to go, and my students will talk to people and say, what are the issues? And then they'll come back in the class and say, how do we establish a service learning program that's going to address those issues? And what academic subjects are connected to those things.
Okay. And that's led by the Department of Social Work.
Social work, yeah.
So the teachers are in that department.
Yeah, they're students in social work.
Okay, all right.
I don't think they have a teacher education program at China Youth University. They do at Beijing normal, but
all right.
So.
And another question, is about, you mentioned curiosity and passion, and you also asked me about, what do you like to do the most, right? So if I direct that question to you, and what do you like to do the most, and what is your passion?
Well, I guess, at 72, I'm still doing this stuff. I guess my passion is to promote experiential learning, to promote community-connected learning that has something to do with a sense of social justice and reducing the amount of hate. On a personal level, I'm only here because my grandparents lived in Russia and they were Jewish. And they were killing Jewish people in Russia.
Yeah.
So they left. And so I guess part of a connection with my grandfather was the sense that hate is such a horrible thing. It was good for me because I got here, but most people would rather stay in their own country and be with their own families, and so all of these people who are immigrants, and that's a terrible thing to have to leave your homeland and leave out your family to come because of issues of safety or something else. And in rural China, again, the issue of the rural population coming, and so I guess part of my passion is I'm not very religious, but it's still about being humane and following Confucius and treating people with dignity and treating people with kindness and trying to set up educational systems that help young people to learn that. So.
Yeah. And what do you think that have you transformed or changed by what you do? Like all those more than 40 years, like
50.
50.
Have I
Sorry.
changed?
Yes. So do you notice that? Do you feel that you have changed, transformed because of that job?
I think, yeah, when I first went into teaching, I certainly wasn't as committed to social justice and at least seeing education as a mechanism to address those issues. So I think, and seeing the fact that interacting with students has helped me to realize that if you can help somebody else to learn this, and I have, again, I just learned about it by accident, but I had done some presentations in Los Angeles, and there was a teacher who was writing about her experience in this program. And she unfortunately died. She got sick. But before she did that, she had mentioned that my presentation helped her to rethink what she was doing. And so that was very rewarding to say, there are some people that think that what I do is reasonable, as this young man in Singapore who liked what I was talking about. Changed my life because now I've spent a lot of time in Asia that I certainly never planned to do that 20 years ago. And I've met all kinds of wonderful people that have been connected. And now you have NYLC has been connected. And we have people from Taiwan and stuff that come to the conference. So I think I shared with you, I have a middle school student who I worked with that was at the conference. He gave me his business card.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, 8th grader. He has a business card. And I met some teachers there, and so the return to Taiwan, to Hong Kong, is based on personal relationships. So this morning I just mailed a birthday card to my granddaughter in Zhuhai. Zhuhai in southern China.
Zhuhai, yeah, Zhuhai, close to Hong Kong.
Close to Hong Kong. And her name is Joy. Her English name is Joy. I got to name her because her mother connected with me at a conference, and her mother came here and to a conference and stayed with us for a week. So I have a personal relationship with Katie Zhang, and she's now moved to Xi'an because her husband's studying in Germany. But so I have a family. So and
you're a good connector, like you.
Well,
and you remember people's birthday, and you were sending them wishes. That's so sweet.
Well, but that's I have somebody in China that I named. That's very special.
No, you have me.
And I have you.
Yes.
And that's a wonderful blessing, to be able to have a personal connection.
Yes.
And I have three kids, two and another kid in Hong Kong that calls me dad, and then 2 who are grandchildren. As I say, Joy is one, and I have another one, Jasper, and Jasper is getting married, and so I've been invited to her wedding next January, and
in China,
in Hong Kong, yeah. So I have family, people that I write to and talk to.
Yeah.
It's a very great blessing to see people who are young and think what you have to say or do is of some value, and they're doing great things themselves. So that's, to me, it's as good as it gets.
Yes.
So meeting you and just sharing this time is just very special.
Yes. Yeah, I feel the same. Yeah.
And it's and just all the people you're going to meet. I mean, and Amy and Jim and all of these people are committed to this kind of stuff, whether or not they call it social justice. Jim comes from working with the South Korean military when you read his story. So, but yeah, I mean, and getting back to the religion thing, I'm not very religious, but I believe in the values of most religions. In fact, when I did a presentation in Jakarta, in Surabaya, in Indonesia, comparing Islam and Confucianism and Christianity and Judaism, Buddhism, they all have one thing in common: service. Doing service for others. And so if that's the common theme in most religions, helping others is a wonderful idea, and that
Yes.
if you're living your life and you want to be
Yeah.
fulfilled, then you want to help others.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So-
think it's Obama or someone else says like the leadership is someone who serve others, so everyone can be a leader.
Well, that was Martin Luther King.
Oh, Martin Luther King.
Everybody can be great because everyone can serve.
Serve. Yes.
That's
Yes.
his-
Yes.
his
Yes.
phrase.
Martin Luther
Yeah.
King. Yes.
So, and the notion, if you actually look at the literature in Christianity, that's what Jesus talked about. Was greatness was a measure of service, not of money or any of those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And so there is that, I think, a common theme. And so I certainly didn't think that 60 years ago, although I was president of my high school and I did service and all of those kinds of things. But I wasn't as conscious of it, obviously, as I am now, 70 years later. So.
Wow.
But so my joy is seeing you, who will make a difference.
Yeah, I'll continue the
Who will
path.
continue the path.
Yeah.
And that, but you already come with a lot of this built in. You just want to find ways to do it, and you're doing it by making the connections. So part of the challenge will be to go back to China and say, who do we connect with? Well, I can, from my journals, articles, one of the reasons I wanted to do it is to say, people don't know about what's going on in the Philippines. I have an article from the Philippines, from Shanti University, from several universities in India, even, Japan, all of them. And so that's why the Service Learning Asia Network is sponsoring this conference, and that's how people connect. So you go to conferences, you meet other people. And so
I'll definitely check out the journal. I think you mentioned here in your book, right? The journal.
well, that was a journal I was doing
Which one is
on youth.
Is it information for action? Is it
Yeah, but
online journal on
yeah,
service learning
but
research?
it doesn't live anymore.
Oh, okay. So which is the journal that you mentioned now?
The journal I'm editing is for the Michigan Journal.
Oh.
I'm editing a special section on Asian research.
Oh, yeah.
So I have like 14 or 15 articles. Anyhow, so when we're looking for networks, and that's why the Service Learning Asian Network is so important, that you can connect with all kinds of people and say, yeah, they're doing it.
Okay. I'll definitely check it out.
Okay?
And the other things you mentioned is so the article about storytelling that you
Science or storytelling?
Science storytelling.
Science or storytelling.
Yeah, science and storytelling.
So I'll send that to you.
Yes, and also the lady who is going to stay in your place. The one
Wu
from
Jing Harrison.
Wu Jing. Yeah. I'm just listing all the
Okay.
things that you mentioned. Otherwise, I'll forget. And some research about an assessment. I'll definitely send an email to you later
Okay.
on.
On the assessments,
Research
on
on
empowerment, evaluation, yeah.
Empowerment. So
Fetterman,
evaluation.
F-E-T-T-E-R-N.
F-E.
T-T-E-R-M-A-N.
E-E-M-A-N.
F-E-T-T-E-R-M-A-N.
R-A-N. Fetterman. That's
Fetterman.
the name of...
David, yes.
Okay.
He's the one who does
Okay.
empowerment evaluation.
Okay.
And he has been doing this all over the world.
That's quite correct. And then the article, like you mentioned, you and 3 Chinese authors. Is there
Oh, right.
some information about the Beijing normal?
Yeah, I can find the name of the book.
Beijing normal University.
So, Ross, if you want to search Ross Velour, R-O-S-S,
R-O-S-S
V-E-L-U-R-E,
V-E-L-U-R-E
Roholt, R-O,
R-O
no, capital.
Oh.
It's 2 words, R-O-H-O-L-T.
H-O-L-T.
He's the editor with Mike Baseman
Oh, okay.
on the book on civic education.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Someplace on the floor in my office, so I'll find it.
Cool.
Okay?
I think that's all. If I have more that you mentioned, and I when I go through the recordings and it comes to my mind, I'll just reach out to you.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Rob.
Thank you.
That's a very nice lunch and also
thank you.
conversation in the car.
That's what it's all about.
And then you are going to China on the 16th, right?
17th.
17th.
Yeah.
And for
Two weeks.
2 weeks.
I come back on June 2nd.
Oh, okay. Because I'm back on June 1st.
Oh, you're in China?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So if you have, I have your email. So depending on your schedule, we can also catch up in China as well.
Yeah, I'm first. Yeah, is an open day, so I'm going to meet with some people, and then I leave on after 1:30 on the 2nd. So.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I am still maybe on the jet lag.
Yeah. No.
After
It's
a month.
harder coming this way.
Yes. Thank you so much and take care and all the best for the business trip in China.
Thank you so much.
Yes, you're in my hometown. Anything that you need my help, just
All right,
let me know.
and I will tell you, connect with you.
Yeah.
I'll give you the names of a few people so you can follow up.
That'll be wonderful. Thank you so much, Rob. Yeah, nice meeting you and have a nice day, nice weekend.